Let's look at the Expenditures section of SeeThroughNY, which includes expenditures for state and local governments. There are 5 different types of records here. For your convenience, 3 of the options are links to databases created by the State Comptroller or New York City. On SeeThroughNY, we have records for state member items, known as pork, which were discontinued a few years ago, so they're no longer being updated. There are also legislative expenditures, which get updated approximately every 6 months. Let's examine these records. There are multiple ways to look for expenditures. For starters, you can limit your search based on a single legislative chamber, or you can search both chambers at once. You can also search by expense description or the recipient of the expenditure. In this case, we'll search for a particular legislator's office. We'll do this by going to Member/Unit, and we'll look for Assembly Majority Leader Joseph Morelli. Now let's narrow his records by report date. We'll choose the reporting period that ended in March of 2013. We can see that these parameters generated 87 records, which accounted for about $272,000 in spending. Let's look at one of his expense types. We'll look at mail. You can see that during this 6-month period, his office spent almost $13,000 on mail. The figure is also broken down by expense description, whether bulk mail, UPS, or first and third class mail. For our next search, why don't we see how much the entire assembly spent on mail during the same period? We can begin this by hitting Clear All. Next, let's choose Assembly for our chamber. Then we'll choose the same report date. We'll now try the expense description search, where we'll type in mail. Your search will narrow quickly. After typing in mail, you should have 2 different results. Let's choose them both, which we can do by highlighting them or just hitting enter. For this period, we find there are 299 records with more than 1.2 million spent on mail by the Assembly. For this search result, we find information that includes Assembly members, their offices, committees, and other staff in the Assembly. Let's start over and do a search by employee. In this case, we'll look at former Assemblyman William Boylan, and eventually we'll narrow it to focus on his travel records. Under the employee or vendor name search function, we'll start to enter his name, last name first. After just a few letters, you'll see his name is the only one there, but you'll notice there are results for office name and vendor or employee. In this case, we don't want his office because it will include other staff. So we'll highlight all the different examples of his name under vendor or employee. These parameters generated 226 records, but we still want to narrow it. So let's choose expense type, and then we'll select travel. We can see he spent more than $150,000 on travel for all the periods available, which on this section of See-Through begin on October 1st, 2007, and end with March of 2013. That concludes our review of the Expenditures section of See-Through New York.